Welcome back to another episode of Automotivated, and I'm back with JB. It's great to see you for 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I mean, this is getting to be like a regular thing. But I'm really auto motivated to be here if I can only talk.
Well, I'm happy to have you back. And, we've talked about a lot of really great things over the course of, wow, I think it's probably been 2 years since we've launched Automotivated. But one of the things that we always come back to is the whole idea of value. So, one of the topics we really wanted to discuss today is figuring out what to price your services at. What is your labor rate? I know that's a question that a lot of our shops um, continue to reevaluate as the years go on. So I think it would be a really great basis to start. We're in Q4 now. We're preparing for the new year. So what are the big things that we want to look at when it comes to labor rate?
Well, I think the number one thing, Shayna, is to understand how important it is to your shop's success.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm going down that path. There are some of you folks out there, you got it all together, you got your books and the whole 10 yards. But there's a lot of people that went into business because they wanted to have their own shop, but they don't have any business acumen.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't fully understand and you kind of fly by the seat of the pants. But this is your lifeblood of your shop, really, because you're selling hours per month and you need to get the right money coming in to cover everything that's going out and giving you a little profit at the end.
Absolutely. It's that
So
that change of mindset where I feel like a lot of shops, and we've seen this with, either our customers or we've had conversations where a lot of people come into shop ownership just because of the skill sets they had, the relationships that they've had. It was the transition for them starting off, getting their hands dirty with a lot of things into owning their own business. But like you had said, that mentality has to change because you're no longer working just to turn those wrenches, you're working to turn a profit.
yeah, and that's the big part about it. So I mean, the discussion about your labor rate is extremely important. And what is it? I'm just going to go over the very basics of what's required for it. Your facility cost. How much does it cost you a month? And I'm cheating a little bit. Your rent, your electricity, and your taxes.
Mhm.
Your employee cost. Again, taxes, labor rate, effectiveness, benefits. Shop costs. Now, this is not the building, but it's everything inside your supplies, your equipment, your insurance, your tools, and the other costs that are going to be out there insurance, an accountant, hopefully,
Mhm.
and marketing. You got to put all this together because every month, this and there's probably a few other things, you got to pay all this out.
Mhm.
And you have to bring in enough money to pay that out and have extra at the end of the month. So there are formulas. I'm not going to give any specific formula. You should go online, do a little research, get an accountant involved or somebody like that. But think about this because if you know what you got to put out every month, you know what you need to bring in. And now you can start planning on that and set your rate, your labor, your overall labor rate, so that it succeeds in paying these bills and putting a little extra money in your pocket.
Mhm. And you brought up a lot of really great points. So these numbers often change, especially when it comes to employee rates. You bring more employees onto the team, taxes, things along those lines. How often should you be reevaluating this labor rate?
Well, minimally once a year,
Mhm.
but a suggestion would be to set it up maybe every other month or something of that sort. And the reason I say that is because if the numbers start shifting upwards, instead of doing a 1 year extra heavy hit, bumping it up, right? You would do it over a couple of months and do it incremental where your customers may never even notice.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's one of the reasons. And also, 2020 has proven to be the craziest year of ever.
I think we can
And the
all
thing
agree on that.
is, just looking back at how crazy this year is, if you're doing it every other month, you may be able to tweak things and keep yourself in a good place.
Absolutely.
So,
Now, let's talk a little bit about also having value behind some of your labor costs. I know right before we hopped on, we were talking about a few things as it relates to showing the value of what it is that you do and really building that relationship and that level of trust with your customers that they're willing to pray or to, excuse me, to pay the dollar amount that your shop deserves to have.
I'm sorry, they're praying that they can pay.
And honestly, they might be.
you know, um, one of the things that I've been kind of thing I think really shows value in what you do is the digital inspections,
Mhm.
because now you're bringing the customer into your shop, even though they may be at work or home, and you're showing them everything you're doing. So they're seeing you are taking the car apart. They're seeing stuff happening to their car. And take it a step further, a lot of shops struggle with diagnosis, charging for it. My suggestion
Mhm.
here is you build an inspection that's a diagnostic inspection and you send it to the customer showing the equipment, some of the steps, and all that stuff. They don't understand what all that fuel trim and spark lines and all that stuff is, but they get, wow, look, they're doing stuff.
Mhm.
Let's get
Mhm.
it fixed.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to have a different approach. And I think it's that simple. Doing the inspection, the diagnostic inspection, and know what? Fixing it right the first time is really big on that list too.
Absolutely. My next question is, how important is it to also be aware of your competition in the area?
Well, as I've mentioned in other broadcasts that we've done, I have a dealership background. And once a year, we had to call all the local dealerships and get what their rates were. And
Mhm.
we actually had to turn it into Ford, and because I was at a Ford shop most of my time, and they would come back and say, "This is what we're paying you warranty wise." So even the
Mhm.
big OEMs know that you have to shop around because you got to be like the same. So the suggestion here is to take a look at the shops around you and make sure that you're not way out of whack, either high or low. I mean,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
important. Not just low, but high,
Mhm.
and see what they are, and then find out where your happy medium is. I mean, that's going to be part of your calculations besides everything I already
Mhm.
mentioned. Take a look around, but here's the number one thing: don't undersell yourself.
Yes.
Don't think that you have to, oh, I can't hit $100 an hour. I can't. Well, if the numbers and everything come together, you can.
And you need
Just make it
to.
worth the while your customers.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point because if you're doing the numbers, if you're looking at everything, the numbers aren't going to lie, right? So you're adding up all of your costs, you're factoring in oftentimes a lot of things that go to the wayside that are just things that you come to expect and aren't necessarily top of mind. And a lot of these things are just money that's taken out consistently. Right? So it's, your rent, your utilities, things that it's almost automated for a lot of businesses.
Hmm.
When the payment is going to be taken out, things along those lines. So it is important to factor that in and make sure that you're not going against what the numbers say. I feel like a lot of times it's that gut reaction where you're like, oh, my customers aren't going to want this, or my competition isn't in the same area and things along those lines. But at the end of the day, you're only hurting your business, your team, and if you're not listening to those numbers.
And you actually hit it. The customers not liking it.
Mhm.
You know what? You are going to alienate some customers, but guess what? They're probably the ones that are always coming in with the coupons, and they're looking that you tell them you do an inspection on their vehicle every time and you tell them everything they need and you look back and you see the same items over and over and over again. Well, if
Yes.
they don't come back, is it really going to cost you anything?
Mhm.
So you will may possibly lose some customers over it, but the thing is if you keep the current ones, they trust you and you're more apt to sell to them and they're going to come back because they understand what you're giving them for that rate.
Absolutely. I think that's such an important point. It's a better way of qualifying the people that are walking through your shop. And it's important for your shop to understand who your target customer is. If you're not the type, if you're investing in digital vehicle inspections where you're taking the time to really do a full evaluation of each vehicle as it comes into your shop, you don't want the people that are just coming in with nickels and dimes, that are
Mhm.
just looking for the cheap solution, not the long term maintenance in which you're investing in with the tools and the team within your shop. So I think that's a really, really great point. And it's oftentimes what holds shop owners back from making these much needed adjustments.
Mhm. And
Great.
you realize that what there's about basically 160 hours in a month. Okay, we're
Mhm.
just going over a 4 week period, but some months are a little more, some are a little less. If you just make $1 change in your rate, think about that times the amount of text that you have and the amount of hours you turn every month, and see how just a little adjustment is going to make a big adjustment on the backside. And the thing is cheating yourself by a dollar, how much it's going to cost you.
Mhm, mhm. That's a really great way to look at it. Well, I think this is really the perfect time for shops going into the end of the year, especially after how tough of a year it's been
Mhm.
for shops all over the country. Make sure you're looking at what your costs are, making sure that you have not only an effective but a profitable labor cost, so that way your shop is able to thrive going into the new year.
And this kind of goes back to something I've probably preached too many times too. You got to measure it. And that's what's really important. Now, you mentioned going back over to bills. I highly suggest that because what happens nowadays, all these little extra charges pop up and you
Mhm,
never look and you never see that every month you're paying 10 bucks for who knows what kind of added on feature, that you don't even use. So
mhm.
doing that may save you money on the top there too.
Yep, absolutely. It's those little fees that always add up that again, you're not even paying attention to them because they're automated. They're small enough to slip through the cracks, but if you're investing the time into seeing what it is those are and what is needed and what's not needed, it's going to make a big difference.
Yes, it will.
Perfect. Well, JB, as always, it's such a pleasure being able to speak to you and having you back for another episode of Automotivated. And I know
Woohoo.
we're going to be back in another 2 weeks. I know we were back to back these past weeks, but we're going to be back in another 2 weeks with another really great topic. Let us know what it is that you do for your labor rate every year. Is this something that you're paying attention to? Is this something that you need to pay attention to? We want to hear what your shop's going through. But until next time, JV, it's always a pleasure, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, so long.
Take care.